I'm flying in my dream and I'm vibrating like more weird than it did when I was vibrating out of my body as a kid. And all of a sudden, like this flash and snap happened, and I was like, bam, in space. This feeling or like comes over you, and it's like, I get it. I know everything there is to know ever. I get it. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God. And like my emotion gets high and bam, I'm snapped. I wake up and I'm like, I lost it. I was like, I know that feeling though. And I was like, what was that? And then that next night, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to do that again. And I have this amazing experience of looking at my own hand, just like looking at it. And I had that same feeling of, I am everything. And I'm like, wow. And I come back and I'm like, okay, I forgot it all, but I know the feeling, that connection, which is what I was saying earlier about consciousness. Going out of body reconnects you with that thing that we are never really disconnected from, kind of forget about it. And it's all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I'm on a mission now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Consciousness Hub podcast. My guest today is Brannen Wilson. He's co-creator of the Mastering Out-of-Body Workshop series, the Manifesting and Conscious Creation workshops, and the Lucid Dreaming Lab. Welcome, Brannen. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Always like talking about this stuff, and looking forward to a good conversation with you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this ever since I found out that you were going to be one of my first guests. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because I know you're a very interesting guy.
Well, thank you for that. We're all very interesting, I guess, on some levels because we're all so unique, and that's what makes us. That's what makes consciousness exploration so interesting, and something that I think people should probably take a little more seriously in their lives if they haven't looked into, why they are the way they are and why is life the way it is for them. So I think it's a great first step for anybody because it just, once you look at life through that lens and get rid of all the other lenses, it just all of a sudden life kind of comes together and things become a little more, I don't want to say easier, but things are more concise and together. It feels that everything kind of fits together better and it makes more sense.
Can you tell us more about that? You teach consciousness exploration in your workshops and out-of-body explorations. Can you tell us what those terms mean if somebody hasn't heard those terms before? And also, why do you feel it's important for people to put the time and energy into this practice? And how has exploring consciousness affected your life in big or small ways?
All right. Well, the exploration of consciousness is an interesting facet that, now even science is really getting into, where before it was kind of just this, are you conscious? Are you aware? Are you awake? The knowing that you exist, right? That's kind of what the standard definition was of consciousness. And, in the spiritual realms of understanding, people had a little bit different view. And it's more like, why is it important? Well, it's the fundamental thing that connects everything in existence, right? Living and non-living things, I really believe, are all conscious. And I think science with the double slit experiment kind of shows that matter is actually conscious. And we as humans are just, our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, our actions are just a fractal of this larger thing that we all come from and that connects to everything, right? Every single thing on this planet, in the universe, even in the non-physical itself, is a part of consciousness, all interacting, creating, and evolving with each other, through this experience. I mean, consciousness itself to me is an experience. That's what it is to me fundamentally. When you look at a baby and they're like this character when they come into this world, and that doesn't change, like it evolves, but that's them. The moment they're here, that's them. and they have this like beautiful, like being level excitement for the world, and you can see who they are. And as they grow up, that person is still always there. And that, to me, it never made sense that that was the brain doing that. And it still doesn't, because now I'm realizing that that's the quality of consciousness that was coming into this life. And it was all the information it had before, all the lessons, everything it's ever learned, stacked on top of each other and put into an earthly realm where we get to have more experience, more lens, and more fun, and learn how to basically just accept, understand, and love. And that's what I see is what consciousness really is. That might have been long-winded, but I almost think that it can't be pinned down. That's why we're exploring it. And that's why everyone should go do it themselves, because I could tell you all day long. You could watch documentaries, you can read stuff on in books or definitions, or watch YouTube videos, and you can get someone else's version of consciousness. But when you go out and find out for yourself what it really means to you, then you start to really see the connection of all things, that the all consciousness, the greater consciousness, is the same as you, which is probably why in religion that they always say, like, oh, you're a God, you're a piece of God. Well, if you can put that into consciousness terms, we're all parts of the first thing, consciousness, that became aware of itself. And once you become aware of self, then you can start going out and exploring, and then having pieces of it. And what's the best way to explore? Put 1 billion pieces or 8 billion or 50 billion pieces of you out into the universe to explore and expand and create and interact and interpret. And then you get a lot more knowledge and understanding and expansion faster that way. So it really does, everything makes, when you step back and look at it from a big picture view, all old religions, ancient texts, new age stuff, science, it's all really connected much more than we've been taught. And that's so exciting to me, because I can feel and see that there's just a really big picture that's almost so large it's hard to see, because it's so big and expansive. I like to say out of body into self, because I'm not sure if we're going out of body. There's a bunch of conflicting people, have their own views. It really does feel like you're leaving this container that you're inhabiting right now. If consciousness, like I said, your quality of consciousness is here in being Brannen. When I feel like I'm going out of body, it does feel like I am kind of maybe not leaving this physical incarnation of myself, but it feels like at least I'm opening up and connecting to all the other parts of consciousness and realities that I am not tuned to here, because we're very tuned to this physical world. And so I like to say out of body into self, because I'm not sure if it's going out of body or I'm going deeper inside myself in my own consciousness and expanding through that inner journey. But at the same time, it does feel like you kind of leave your body. I still have a lot of the times the classic vibrate, lift out of your body. My first ones were like a lot of them. You look back and you see yourself laying on the bed or on the couch or in the chair, and you're like, whoa. And the place you're in is very similar to the one that you just left, but it's slightly different, and little nuances, colors, things are shifted, things aren't where they're supposed to be, but they are at the same time. And it feels just like being there. There's almost no difference. Sometimes it feels even a little bit more interactive and real in a lot of ways. So what I think it's happening, or what I believe anyway, is that I'm opening up to all these other realities. We like to call them reality frames in our workshops, where I think all this data, this information that's around us all the time, we only have a small window of view in what's going on around us. We only see the 7 colors. We only hear sounds from a certain decibel range. We can only feel certain things. And even science says you're only like touching when you touch something, it's actually like you're really feeling there's still space between. There's like a pushback, like magnetism in a way, right? So there's all these weird things that happen, and when you go out of body, it's almost like it all makes sense. It's so weird. Something connects us differently. So I get to be in touch with all these other places. And it's not so much that they're, like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going out of body. I just want to rephrase that because I know people will go, well, you're not going out of body. And I don't know that. It does just feel that way. But it's an expansive thing that makes me feel that I'm connecting with things that have always been around me, right? They're always there. We just haven't been able to pick them up with our senses, or at least the five senses that we are accustomed to in our daily lives here. So when you expand out, you vibrate, or you go to this other place and you can feel, touch, sense, taste, smell, all those things, you can do them there. And it's amazing because sometimes you smell a flower when you're out of body, it smells more vibrant than here. And sometimes when you're, feeling somebody's love in an out of body state, it's almost like you really feel it. You're not interpreting it through your intellect. So there's this, and I think that's one of the biggest things with out of body is that the intellectual part of us that wants to diagnose, label, put into a catalog and file it away kind of sits back and allows this other part of us, this part that just knows. It doesn't have to do all that stuff. It doesn't have to solve problems or anything. It just is. And that's the part that you're going out with. And when you're out there, everything you interact with, and I mean everything, and especially other, for lack of a better term, entities, but other people or other beings, whatever, you really like know them instantly. When you walk up to someone here in physical matter reality, and yeah, you can get a sense of them. You probably instantly judge them by their look and who they how they act. But then when you start talking to them, you really get a good sense of who they are. And sometimes we get an intuitive sense, and that's that intuitive sense is the thing that is going out of body and really being the leader out there. Where here, that intellectual one that likes to think its way into corners, gets us trapped places, makes up problems to solve problems, and then doesn't even really solve them. It just solves it to its best of its ability. And as long as it's comfortable with that, we just keep going on. But that other part of us, there is no problem. It's all acceptance, love, understanding, connection. So that to me is the essence of out of body, is this other part, this part of us that doesn't really get a lot of headroom and bandwidth here, gets to show you the infinite bandwidth that it actually has compared to the limited bandwidth that we have here. Like I was saying with, seeing the electromagnetic spectrum colors here and the sounds that we don't hear. Really ask yourself what's going on around you that you can't pick up right now because your eyes don't have the capacity to pick up that data, or your ears don't have the range to pick up that data and interpret it, right? What's going on around us? And that's probably why ghosts and all types of paranormal stuff happen, is because just for a little bit, that part of us comes through and it allows us to be a part of that, and we get to see it and interpret it. So, and it's helped me out in so many ways. Like, it's made life so much more connective, and it made it, again, I don't want to say the term easier because life is hard for everybody. It's a challenge, but everything's on your view. How do you look at it, right? And now I've been looking at it rather than being like, oh, that's hard. It's like, ooh, this is an experience. Let's see what it entails. And it's made me, I had all these experiences with my father who passed away, and that really made me grow as a person, like inside, not externally. I mean, inside, to really understand. It took away I was a person at 2 years old, which is pretty young to have a real concept of death. 2.5 years old, I remember it too. And my mom would always tell me, like, it's so weird, Brandon, how no one told you what death was, but I had this like real fear of death at 2 years old. And it stayed with me till probably my teenage years, when I really started leaning into sleep paralysis that I was having in my lucid dreams. And somehow when I changed my intent, when I changed my perspective on what was happening, everything changed in my world around me. And it gave me this sense of course, you're not just here and then you die. It's like, uh, we think we all know that, but we fear that not being true, but we feel it that it's true. We know that it's true here, but up here keeps telling us, whatever science tells us, because it has to be proven and things like that. So it's made my life so much better. It's made me be more understanding to other people, to be like, because I'm letting that part that didn't have bandwidth, that being level part, come out more and have more footing, so it doesn't just sit back and let the intellect run my life. And now it's part of it. And I kind of want them to be 50-50. We need the intellect here to live,
Yeah.
to navigate this crazy world. But it is a lot easier to navigate when you're in touch with this beautiful, timeless, infinite part of you. And it's made me really be more truly empathetic instead of an intellectual empathetic to people, realizing that they're just me with another set of data. And if I had their data through the same lens as them, that I would make every choice that they made the same way and act the same way. Right. And that's all it is. I don't know better. I'm not better than anybody. I'm just me. We're all unique individuals navigating this insane place called Earth and physicality, which is amazing in itself. And I think so. Out of body has been my biggest teacher in the last almost 20 years now, of going out of body almost every single night, multiple times. And really, like, at first it's fun, right? It's always, I'm going to fly, I'm going to do this, I want to visit the pyramids, I want to go to Antarctica, I want to check out space. And you do all these amazing things that in itself are awesome. And then eventually you start going, well, what's this thing mean? What does this represent? And then I realized you can just ask those things like, hey, what do you represent? And then all of a sudden you get back information. Sometimes I just yell out, show me something important. And then I get random stuff. Hey, show me my deepest fear. And I've gotten some things that I didn't know about myself. So it puts you in touch with the shadow aspect, right? I think Carl Jung called it that, of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, that we either push down, we're either unaware of it, we don't know it exists, or we're afraid to interact with it. And those parts of us need to be recognized. Those are those shadows that we have in our dreams. The monsters aren't really monsters. That's another thing I've learned from out of body. Monsters aren't really monsters. They're things that have been pushed down in you. They're parts of us that really just want to be recognized. And once you recognize them, accept them, right? Full acceptance. Things happen, right? I've heard so many stories online of people asking, to see something and their monsters chasing them. And they finally, after years of it happening, they face that thing, because you're in a non-physical environment. You can't die. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
get kicked out of the scenario and you're just going to come back to your body, but you can't die. So then you can at least have some solace knowing that you're not actually going to get hurt. So if you're aware in your dream and something's chasing you and you turn around finally and face it face to face, it's never what it seems. It always turns into something beautiful. I've had things chasing me and I'll turn around and I'll go boo, like I'm scaring it. And it like sits there and I'm like, I'm just kidding, and I had these like shadow monsters chasing me a wicked long time ago. And then they turned into a bunch of butterflies and just flew away and they never came back again. It was like they
Mm-hmm.
just want to be acknowledged. And maybe it's a fear test too, right? Um, so all of those things of why it's helped me are the exact reason I think it could help anybody if they start going into it. And I know there's a lot of trauma in people, like deep-seated, generational, and from this life trauma that we all have gone through. And it can help us not get over it, but get through it. And instead of getting stuck on the moment that the trauma happened, we take that silver lining, the understanding that we take from it. There's a saying I like to keep in the back of my mind. It's remember the lesson, but forget how you learned it. Right? As humans, we have a tendency to be stuck on the thing that happened and how it felt to us. Our ego takes it and our intellect starts chomping at it and telling, oh, you got to protect yourself. We put up these walls. And instead, and that's common, we all do it. But instead of getting stuck on how the thing happened, take the why. You could be better from it, right? And that's one of the things I like to do with fear in general is kind of switch it around. There's always another angle for you to look at something. Perspective is everything, right? What is reality other than what you perceive it to be? And just like when you take a cylinder and you look at it one way and it's a circle, and you turn it the other way and it's a rectangle, right? Your
Mhm.
perspective has everything to do with how reality unfolds around you. And it's not your brain is probably not reacting to reality as much as you think. And it's more that reality is reacting to your brain and your thoughts a lot more. And once I took that stance, it's really changed. That's the thing where everything, conscious awareness, manifestation, understanding, going out of body, lucid dreams, getting intuitive feelings, understanding and feeling people's emotions, being an emotive person, and all of these things start to coalesce because really they're just one thing, and that one thing is what we started this conversation with. It's consciousness. It's all
Consciousness.
just consciousness doing a bunch of amazing things that we think aren't possible. But like I said, if you go and do it yourself, what is reality other than what you perceive it to be? So that's why everyone should do it.
You mentioned fear tests. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I know that mastering your fear or releasing fear is a big part of what you and Will teach in your workshops. That's a big part of being able to learn successfully from these experiences. Can you talk about fear tests, what they are, and what is your approach to releasing fear if something like that does come up for you?
Yeah, and it still does. Of course it does, right? We all have fears. I have children. I fear for them, but I like to again shift my framing of how I see the thing. Before I get into that, I guess like fear is something that I said bandwidth before, and I'm going to use it again. Fear takes up a lot of our processing power as beings, right? And then we start acting because of the fear, not acting out of fear, but the fear is now something bad happens to us, we remember it, and now we try to avoid that. We are pleasure seeking. Everyone is. We'd rather have things go good than bad, but you can learn from either one. But it's a lot nicer when you're learning from the good stuff, not the bad stuff. So when something bad happens that we don't like, we put up a wall or a defensive point that we now try to avoid. That how can I avoid this? I don't like having anxiety, so I'm going to avoid the things that give me anxiety. And that's fine. It works, right? That's how we all get through this world. But how
Mhm.
about if that's kind of like putting a band-aid on something, right? That's not really healing it really. And it worked. Like I said, it does work. We all do it. I still do it. But really, if we went after the reason that we were having the anxiety, right? Why are we having, fear is a blanket word for, anxiety, anger, animosity, being mean, not understanding, all of those things. They're all blanketed into fears just to make it easier. And all of a sudden, after 40 years of living the same way, you have all of these walls that you can barely see out of, right? We try to fit everything in a box, in our box that we've created with these walls. Our whole life, we keep stuffing things in and keeping things out. And then when we become adults, we're struggling to breathe inside the box we created because there's no room left because we've shut everything out and kept everything in. Fear takes up so much of our bandwidth, our processing power, our ability to interact with the world around us in a authentic and accepting way. And I think the biggest thing to get rid of fear is acceptance, is knowing that, like, yeah, bad things can happen. And like we do it, I gave this example the other day. Like we all accept that we can get into a car and drive. That car is pretty dangerous. And there's a million other people out on the road, and you're accepting that they're going to do their job to be a good driver. And we kind of don't even notice that that's a fear test, right? And I like to like we've passed so many fear tests in our lives that we don't know that they're fear tests at. So acceptance is passing a fear test. You've now accepted that this thing is a possibility, but you're just going to go on prepared. That doesn't mean don't prepare, right? If something bad is going to happen, or potentially something bad can happen, it doesn't mean don't prepare and just go, oh, okay, well, I accept that it can, I'm just going to do it anyway. That's not what I mean. I still mean you can prepare, You can get ready. You can try to navigate it so you do not have to deal with that thing, but you have to accept it as this is a thing that could happen. And if it's the worst possible outcome, I'm okay with it. And I'm going to go through with it anyway, because it's about the experience and trying to understand and get through it. So we all passed. That's why everyone has looked at when 7 people watch one thing in a movie, a scary movie, like 2 people are afraid, 2 people aren't, 2 people are laughing, and one person's not even like caring about what's on the screen. It's because we all have different levels of our lens of experience, either focusing, directing, or distorting what we see in front of us in this moment. So a lot of fear tests we've already passed. And we like to think, oh, this is a fear test right now. Well, you've already passed a million of them every day, getting up and walking around. How about a baby standing up for the first time? You think it wants to, but it's probably slightly afraid. It knows it's fallen before, right? But it still
Mhm.
gets up. And fears are good to be aware of because they are a being level feeling. With that thing I was talking about earlier, that place inside of us, they kind of come from there. So it's a good gauge to find that place. It's just not, you don't want to dive into it and let that be the reason that you're making decisions. No one makes good decisions out of fear. It's never, it's usually a decision you justify to yourself that you had to make, right? Like making it through the lens of fear. So it's never that useful. And it can be protective and defensive. And sometimes that's necessary, but it's not, when you're protecting and defending yourself, that's not expanding and understanding. That's keeping things the same. We like things to stay the same. So anything outside of our comfort zone kind of gets labeled as a fear. Oh, I don't want to do this. I haven't done it before. I don't want to try that food. It can be as simple as a little thing as trying a new food. But really, I like to look at it like something new, right? It does, oh, I don't know what the outcome is. Or that's another thing. Expectation causes a lot of fear because we either get it, there's 2 ways to this. You either get attached to a ghost of the past and you're stuck in the past, like having an expectation of how you should have acted or how you wish something turned out, and that becomes part of you. Or you're looking at the future, who is also a phantom that doesn't exist yet, but you tell yourself a story that it's already happened when it hasn't. And this is definitely how it's going to turn out. And it's not an intuitive feeling, it's an intellectual exercise of us telling ourselves, this is how it's going to turn out. And then we don't do the thing because we're worried about the outcome that we're not sure of. And that in itself is limiting, right? Now we go back to limits. Why are we limiting ourselves? We are literally limitless beings of consciousness. If everything around us is consciousness, then you can do any other thing any other human can do. You're no different than them. The only difference is how you're viewing it. And we all have our own unique lens. Fears in that sense, when we're looking towards the future of expectation, they like really hamper us. But I like to look at it again. I like to spin things because there's always another way to look at things. And this is what I use personally is always like, okay, well, what about when I'm going on vacation and I get to go to this new place and I'm walking through this national park in this other country that's beautiful and I've never seen it before? Well, I don't know. I've never been there, but I'm excited, right? I'm happy to explore and have this experience. And we always put it akin to a child, right? A child doesn't really have the fears that adults have, right? We can all agree on that. They're looking at it through the eyes of the being level. They're living on that level. That version of self, that defensive self has not really been fully created yet, or at least refined. And they're just like, ooh, that was awesome. Can we do that again? Oh, wait, we're doing something else. Can we do that again? Oh, man, can I have more? Wow, look at this. And that's how life is. I think life should be like that every second. And it's hard sometimes because it's not all fun and games. Like stuff that hurts us happens. We lose people, we lose things, we lose parts of ourselves in places. And that's the other thing is I'll just kind of touch on it quick with when you get stuck on a fear from the past or a fear of the future, that's like your energy. So you're putting like every thought you have a part of you that's a little bit of your energy, a little bit of your awareness, your attention is going into that thing. And that leaves less of you here in the now. So when you have yourself scattered in 60 different places on bad thoughts and negative thinking, well, how would you expect to be happy and jovial right now? if you're always scattered here, and look at the world, we have distractions everywhere, and some of them are good distractions and a lot of them are bad distractions, and keeping us away from really going into exploring our own consciousness, which is the most fun thing in my opinion. So, and another thing I like to do for fears is that and it's taken me a long time to do this, and it's not like it's hard, but it's a interesting way. Like, I just, when something happens, I instantly, because I'm hyper aware, you set an intent, a goal, and that's to be aware of these things. So now your subconscious mind is a crazy powerful thing once you can tap into it. So you set your intent to be aware of when you have these negative feelings and thoughts, and all of a sudden you're hyper aware of those, and they happen all the time until you start noticing them and you try to change them. But so when I have a negative feeling, I'll be aware of it because I've set the intent to be aware, and I just look at it and I change my perspective on it, like I said, but I do it right then. I don't look at a future me without that, or how would I be with it. I just go, this is how I want to be right now. And it's almost kind of like a fake it till you make it thing, because you're going to inevitably fall back. You're going to go backwards and think again, but that's fine. It's never too late to get up. No one's keeping track. Just you are, right? We're always so worried about judgment from other people. Well, what are we doing in that judgment is judging ourselves. That's really what we're doing all the time. So
Yeah.
acceptance is, again, the best way to get rid of fear. So I just, when I have a feeling that I don't like, I notice it. I'm just the place where it happens. I'm not that feeling. I'm not my trauma. I'm not my negative energy. I'm just the place where it happens. I love the metaphor of, I think it's from like Shaolin monks or Tibetan monks. I'm not really sure, but it's like, you are the sky and I'm the sky. We're all the sky. We're all our own sky. And no matter what bird flies by, no matter the chaos on the ground below it, no matter the thunderstorm that goes through, or the rainstorm, or anything, the twister, the hurricane, the sky is still the big, beautiful sky behind it. It's just the place experiencing all these things. And that to me was really like, oh, I can get behind that, because really I am not those things that I feel. So then I feel them, I observe them, and then I go back to being the thing that my chosen way of being, which is to try to be authentic and be the most Brannen that I can be. And I want to be happy, right? We all want to be happy. We want to be accepted. And that starts with accepting ourselves, because once you accept yourself, it doesn't matter if anyone else accepts you. And really, everyone will accept you. If you know you're accepting yourself, well, then you're probably being a great person, a great friend, a great family member, a great human, right? And that's really, being a better human is important these days, probably more than ever. So,
Absolutely.
uh, yeah. Uh, so I just become the thing. Like I said, it's that simple. And yeah, it is hard at first, because you're going to be like, I'm not, that intellect's going to fight back with you, tell you that you're not that thing. Oh no, you have to be worried about all of these things. Here's that list. See that catalog I made? We made this your whole life. This is how you are. And it's really not like that. Those are just experiences where it happened, and you can take note of them. They're great to take the lesson with you, but the experience itself isn't actually worth taking with you. It's just a memory. It's something that happened. So I just push myself to be the thing I want to be. And over time, like practicing anything, learning a musical instrument, sports, even reading when you were a kid, it takes practice. You're not just going to be good at something because you want to do it that day, right? It takes diligence, determination, dedication. And if you keep doing that, because it's just a thing you can do, when you have a negative thought about the person that you had an argument with last night, just change and be like, they acted that way because that's their set of data. And I'm acting this way, but I can only change me. So I'm going to change me. And then you'll feel good for a moment, and then it'll come back in and be like, but they shouldn't have said that to me. And it's like, oh, no, there's the ego. Our ego is coming out to protect us. It's there to protect us. It's our best friend. It just
Mhm.
has, Will always says it in our classes, it has really bad strategies, but it's really trying
Mhm.
to help always. It just doesn't know how, because our whole life we've been working out in the gym of physical matter reality and doing the wrong techniques. the wrong motions.
Right.
So we have worked out the wrong muscles. And those other muscles are there waiting to be worked out. And they come back really fast once you start implementing them every day of your life. And the other muscles, the ones that we've worked out, they lose their mass, their beefiness pretty quick also. They're always there. You get to make a choice. That's the thing. It's knowing that there's a choice. Acceptance is knowing that there was a choice on how you acted in every moment. Feelings don't just bubble up. Fears don't just bubble up. And that is, I have a right to be mad, right? I have a right to act like this. I can be mad at this person. Sure, you can. That's fine. That's part of your experience. All money for you. I'm there to help. But really, how is that useful? How is that
Mhm.
helping you? How is that helping anybody else? Service to self, right? When we're all being not self-serving, right? It can be good for your growth, but it doesn't mean it's good for everybody else's, right? It could be good for your experience. But when you have a view of service to others, that's always growth to self too. Always. So it's better
Yeah.
to try to put yourself in other people's shoes and really, we always say all these sayings that we've said our whole lives, walk a mile in my shoes, all like they mean so much more to me now. Like we always just say them. It's like reading a quick quote on the internet that's inspirational. You're like, yeah, that's a great quote. I'm going to save it and I'm going to post it. And then 2 days later, you don't think about it again, right?
Right.
Because we're intellectualizing it instead of being it. So now all these things that I read and all the sayings that people said through my whole life, they mean so much more to me now that I actually feel like I finally understand them really deep at my core because now all of these sayings were right. We just weren't looking at them the right way, or I wasn't from my experience. So, yeah, fear is one of our biggest hampers. And I think expectation can be put right there next to it as the main driver of fear. And the
Mhm.
best way to get around that is acceptance. That's what I would say for all that.
Can you talk about what it was like for you growing up and what these experiences meant to you back then, and how did they develop over time?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Because I think that's one of the reasons that I've been so open my whole life. Somehow that part wasn't closed off. Science always tells us that, especially growing up in the 80s and 90s, like people didn't really talk about this stuff. The internet didn't exist. So there wasn't as much openness and communication about like today you can go on and look anywhere for spirituality. But back then it was a little more like, hey, science is king. And it's not that I'm saying science is wrong. It's usually right on point, but it's just always missing something, and I always felt that, right? So luckily I grew up in a household of, great parents and an awesome brother too, that were open to that from the beginning. So it let my lens have that I always knew that there was something else. So when something strange or paranormal, or just weird that else would call weird or not possible even, I always was like, nah, that feels right. So I never blocked it off. So, and that's kudos to my parents really, because they were really supportive in a way that they didn't even know back then, just them being open because they themselves meditated. My dad went to like, I can't remember, Maharaji, the guru, and like, learned from him and meditated and did all the spiritual stuff, even before I was born and as I was born. And my mom too meditated with him, and she had out of body experiences, but they were more, I think she was more scared of them. Not scared as scary, but like she was like, whoa, this is a lot. So she didn't seek them out as much. But
Mhm.
my dad had experiences. And so since a young age, I never got that filter put on. They allowed this to happen to me. I remember, and I've told the story a bunch in our workshops, but I'll bring it up here again because just this alone, and it stuck with me. I still believe it, even though I haven't got it to work yet. But my dad, at like, 6 years old, I was probably doing something getting on his nerves, and he was trying to, accomplish a task, I'm sure. And he sat me down in my room and was like, you see this dinosaur? And I remember it was a blue plesiosaur. It's an aquatic dinosaur. And put it on my shelf, my messy shelf. He pushed out the sides of all the toys everywhere and set it there. And he's like, you can move this with your mind. And he's like, you have to stare at it and really believe that it's going to work, right? And I remember this at 6 years old. It's like stuck with me my whole life. And I sat there for at least an hour. In his mind, he's probably like, haha, I got an hour to myself. But really, he was doing more than that, right? Because he probably believed that too deep down. He just probably could never get it to work. And I still haven't got it to work either. But it's the fact that at 6 years old that he told me that, and with conviction that, hey, you can do this. So I sat there for an hour and I was just like staring at it like, it's not moving, but I'm going to make it move. And I was probably using my intellect a lot, but also it's like I remember him saying, you have to think that it can move. You have to believe it, right? And that alone set me off my whole life, knowing that like the people I look up to the most, my parents growing up, they solve all your problems. They always help you. They comfort you. They shelter you. They feed you, everything, right? They're like the ultimate consciousness. They're like God to a child, right? You look up to them, well, at least in an ideal way, right? I'm not saying everybody does, but that's what I had. And so that opened me up to keep that going my whole life, because I'm very right brained, right? I use my intellect like anyone else. I can think with my left brain, but I'm more intuitive than I am intellectual. I go by the flow of things. I feel things out, and I always have. So I never shut that off in my life. And through my life, I can tell all the times I that society just kind of generally pushes you towards your left brain. It's a left brain world we live in. To be successful, you got to be smart. You got to be follow rules and all these things, and you have to decipher problems and come up with solutions to big problems that require a lot of thought, and that's all great. There's certain times in my life where I almost got pushed into my left brain, and I remember a few times being like, wait, and things like weren't working out all of a sudden when they always worked out for me, right? They always worked out. And I remember going, wait, I don't usually think like this, right? Awareness is a heck of a thing. Makes you be able to like, oh, wow, wait, this isn't me. This isn't how I used to think. And I'd shift back. And it's like literally just that thought of shifting back. And all of a sudden things start falling in place again. So I really realized that I had to stay that way. And it was more beneficial for me to keep that. I think it's easier. I don't know this because you only know your own experience, right? So this could be wrong, but I think it's easier to to grow up and keep your right-brained creative thinking and to learn to use your left brain than it is to be left-brained your whole life and try to figure out that there's an intuitive side of you. There's a lot of conflict that happens back and forth because that intellect is like, nope, beating that intuitive side down. Even when you get an intuitive moment, you're like, oh my God, what's going on? I just got this feeling of water. Is my kid in a pool? That happened to my mom once, right? She had this intuitive. That's why I used it as an example. But when that happened, and she was right. When we came back, we had gone swimming, and she knew that my brother was in the water, and he was still really young, right? So she knew her intuition was right. But the point I'm trying to make is that once your intuition gets that feeling, your intellect instantly jumps on top of it, says, oh, no, 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 no. Let me tell you what's right. I know what's right here. And it might be, but it also usually tries to tell you the opposite or what's better or the safe thing. So, just saying that my mom had these intuitive moments. And I think mothers, women in general, are just so naturally intuitive from my experience. Like my wife is, my kids, my two daughters are, my mom was, my grandmother was. It's just like, there's something that, I don't know, probably call it the motherly instinct because it's wild. But all that, even that moment in my life, I was probably like 8 when that happened or something like that, 7. And she's like, oh, I knew Dane was in the water. And I was like, huh, really? So all of these moments, my parents, they just helped me see that this stuff was a real thing. And from my childhood, I had sleep paralysis all the time as a kid, like all the time. And I used to I had all the classic signs of sleep paralysis. There was a presence in my room. It felt evil, or at least menacing, we'll say. Maybe not evil, but menacing. And I'd see a shadowy figure at the end of my bed staring at me, or I'd feel this feminine energy sitting on my chest. So I like couldn't breathe and it was heavy. And I can't move my body in these states, but I'm awake, right? I'm aware, but my body is still asleep. I think it's called atonia, right? It's the thing in your brain that, so you don't act out your dreams while you're sleeping. So if you're running in a dream, you're not, running your legs in bed at night. So there's this part of your
Right.
brain that shuts everything off. So somehow I think sleep paralysis like bypasses that, where like your awareness, your consciousness is still awake or somehow wakes up, but your body is still 100% asleep. And all that atonia, that thing that stops your muscles is still 100% working, but somehow your awareness has bypassed it. And you're sitting there and there's a presence in the room, and there's a guy at the shadow figure at the end of your bed, and there's a woman sitting on your chest. And all of these things are things that you can look up and people have. And it's funny that everyone has the same type of thing. I could hear voices. I'd always hear my name being called, like in like whispery, but not a whisper, but like Brad. I'm like, as a kid, I am freaked out. I'm already afraid of death at 2 years old, right? So I tell my parents this stuff, and they're like, hey, like you have to, it's okay. You're just dreaming, but, telling me how to get through it. And most people would just say, oh, yeah, that's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just a dream. And yeah, sure, it is
Right.
just a dream. But if it's still happening to you, it's real, right?
Mhm.
Reality is whatever you're experiencing. I don't care if it's real here and I can touch it and taste it. If I'm experiencing it, it's still happening to me. So that makes it real. So I kept having these, and no one could really help me. And I just kept it for myself for a while, years, years. And I was always good at dreaming from a young age. I can still remember hundreds of dreams from when I was under 10 years old, right? Like amazing dreams. And then I remember probably my first true lucid dream. It was probably around like 8 years old. I might have had them before, but it never clicked in my head. This is the one that clicked. And
Mhm.
there was dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. So there was dinosaurs in the dream kind of chasing me. And then all of a sudden I just kind of like was like, wait, I'm dreaming. And I turned around, and like the Tyrannosaurus Rex that I thought was chasing me was just standing behind me and like smiling like a puppy
Oh.
dog, And I'm like, and nothing happened beyond that. There was nothing, no big moment of love or interaction. It was just and I woke up and I went, whoa, So then I was like, I can control my dreams. So then I started becoming aware, because awareness is the biggest commodity and the most important commodity we have, right? Time might be the biggest commodity here in physical matter reality, but awareness is the biggest commodity we have, is consciousness. And so now I started to become aware that, oh wait, I can interact, not control. Like lucidity doesn't mean you're in control of your dreams. It just means that's a part of lucidity. But lucidity is just being aware that you're dreaming, right? That's all. Now, if you know you're dreaming, what are you actually afraid of? Right. So then I started to realize that. And then I'd start to have more and more. And now I'm in co-creating with my dreams. I'm there rather than my dream happening to me, which is a kind of a parallel to life, right? A lot of people, we all feel like life is happening to us. And
Right.
in the dream sense, I realized that my dreams weren't happening to me. They were happening for me, through me, right? And
Mhm.
life can be that same way. And that's another reason why going out of body and lucid dreaming can be so helpful. It changes your perspective on how you think this place is really happening. So as I fostered that growing older into my teenage years, somewhere, I don't know, 13 to 15, I was still having sleep paralysis. And I probably was having out of bodies, but to me, they were all just dreams back then, right? I didn't know the
Mm.
difference, even though I can look back and see the difference in definition and clarity of the different dreams and out of bodies, because that's really the only difference between a dream and an out of body to me is your awareness. How is the quality of your awareness? How aware are you? Like in a dream that you're unaware in, you're just kind of like there and your awareness is fuzzy. We've probably all had dreams like that. Then when you become lucid, things become more clear, but you can't control them. Then you learn to control your dreams. Your awareness is very high. Your intent is, you can use your power of intent to move things, to fly. And then eventually, you have so much clarity that something else happens, and like there's like a click where you go from a lucid, very clear, you thought it could not be any more clear lucid dream, and all of a sudden you're in this place that's like more real than real life. Now, that was like my progression. So it was a slow but amazing journey through all this. So sleep paralysis was happening to me, and like I said, it might have been 13 to 15, somewhere in that time frame. I don't know exactly, but I decided to put that thought of lucid dreaming into my sleep paralysis states. That, hey, wait, are they connected? And if I can be aware of my dreams and then how I think in my dreams, because it's like an instantaneous thought responsive environment, right? In your dreams, you think, if you're walking around a corner and it's a dark alley, if you're in physical matter reality, you're like, ooh, what's around this corner? But whatever's there is going to be there. It's just a dark alley.
Mhm.
But if you're in a dream and you're like, what's in that dark alley? Oh my God, it's going to be so. As soon as you think that, it's going to happen. So I learned to
Right.
train my own brain. There wasn't books. My parents helped me a little bit, but I also kept a lot to myself just because it was a dream. So I didn't need to tell them everything. And I'm a teenager now. So like I'm like disconnected from everything. You think you're living in your own world, you think you know everything. So then
Yeah.
you start realizing, oh, what's around this corner? And then instead of having that thought, you can think of it for a second. Oh, it's scary. No, I'm going to see Michelle around this corner. And bam, Michelle's around that corner, right? So it's an instantaneous thought responsive environment. So I
Mhm.
tried to move that into my sleep paralysis. Like, wait a second, I'm scared here all the time. I don't like it. Well, what if I'm not? And that's when it all changed. My intent, my goal, my perspective, just a small shift. It's not a monument. A small shift in perspective produces a monumental shift in what you perceive. So now I'm having this moment where, okay, there's this presence at the end of my bed. I'm just like, whatever. I'm not even saying I accept it or anything. I'm just like, I'm not afraid. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, my body starts vibrating, right? And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Get kind of freaked out. That night, nothing happens, right? I'm kind of like, whoa, what was that? And then, it happens again a couple nights later. And I'm like, okay. So then I just accept it. And then I'm having these crazy experiences that I was still chalking up as dreams, floating out
Mhm.
of my body, going to other realms, dealing with other weird things, places you can't explain, seeing things
Mhm.
that um, you've never seen before, but somehow you know that they're real.
You mentioned reality checks. So I want to hear a little bit about reality checks. What are they, and why do you do them, and how do you do them? And then also you've mentioned things being more real than they are here, colors being brighter, there being more colors, just a different immersive experience when you're exploring consciousness or going out of body. When you're having those kinds of experiences every night, how do you find a balance coming back to this human experience? How do you stay grounded, and balance what you've learned in the non-physical with your life in the physical?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all important things that's a very important one, the last part. So reality checks. It's, there's so many of them out there, and it's something I read about. It's not something I made up or anything. They're just there. But what I think is important, you ask yourself what you do during your day. You'll probably dream about at night, what you're focused on during your day. You'll have some type of dream about, if you're worried about a big upcoming project that has to be done, you'll probably be a dream somewhere in that weeks of working on the project of you working on the project, failing or not making a deadline, all those things. So whatever's going on in your life directly correlates to your sleep. And we sleep 1/3 of the day, which is basically 8 hours. And that means we sleep for 1/3 of our lives. So wouldn't it be cool to, first of all, use that time to learn, because you can learn in that time. Sleep studies show that even just having a dream of throwing a baseball and you've never thrown a baseball before, that neural pathway is created. So then when you go to physically throw a baseball for the first time, your brain already knows how to do it. right? So that's interesting in itself. So to get back on track though, reality check. So just asking yourself if you're dreaming or awake right now. And it's easy to go, oh, of course I'm not awake. I mean, of course I'm not dreaming right now. I'm awake. Like this is my waking life. Of course I'm awake, but I'll do it anyway. Oh, I'll jump and I float, fall, gravity pulls me back down to the ground. I try to push my finger through my hand.
Mm-hmm.
That does not go through my hand right now, right? Oh, okay, I'm in reality. And that's how I think a lot of people do it. And there's a bunch of like looking at a clock, do the numbers line up? Because in dreams, sometimes it's hard to read words and numbers. They change a lot. They'll be morphing. Can you remember the last 10 minutes of your day? What were you doing 10 minutes ago? What were you planning to go do? Because it's easy to do that in real life. But in a dream state, a non-physical state, sometimes you're just thrown in and you're like, wait, where am I? Like, can I remember what I was here doing? If I jump, do I float? There's a bunch of little reality checks, but it's not the check that matters. It's always intent, right? Intent is the driving force of our consciousness. Our awareness through our intent create reality. So instead of asking yourself if you're dreaming, that's still good to do, because now that will translate. You'll ask if you're dreaming in a dream. That's the whole point, is so you do it during the day, because what you do during the day translates, and you'll probably do it during sleep, especially if it's important to you. And intent makes it important. But if you ask yourself if you're dreaming and you always go, well, of course I'm not dreaming, this is real life, but you go through it. Well, when you go to do it in your dream, the same thing's going to happen. You're going to go, oh, is this a dream? It might be. Let me check. Probably not. And you go to push your finger through your hand and it doesn't go through, because your thoughts tell you that's how it creates. You didn't expect it to go through. Then you're going to be in a dream and go, no, I'm not dreaming. I have a friend that we have discussions all the time. He's like, no, it's impossible to lucid dream. I've tried it so many times. I'm like, I can't believe that you're telling me it's impossible when I'm telling you I do it, but because you haven't experienced it, it must not be possible. But he's aware enough to try a bunch, but because he doesn't do the reality check right, or more efficient, let's say, because he's still doing the reality check, he just has to, again, shift his perspective a little bit. Instead of asking yourself, are you dreaming? You just assume that you are here in this life. So when you do your reality check 10 times a day, because it only takes a second, right? It takes 4 seconds to do a reality check. It's not really that big of an ask, right? If you do it 10 times, it's going to take you 40 seconds out of your day to do it. I think we can all do that. So you ask your, I like to do, I'll either jump or I'll push my finger through my hand. Those were my go-to ones. So now, instead of the way I described it before, you go into it going, oh, I'm going to do a reality check right now during my physical day. I'm like, I'm dreaming. Yep, my finger went through my hand. I'm dreaming. Even though you're in real reality, because that thought process, that intent translates right into your sleep. So now when you do go to do it in your sleep, you're going to push your finger through your hand, expecting it to go through your hand. And it's going to go through your hand because you expect it. And then you're really going to be lucid and know that you're dreaming. And I think that's the biggest thing, is always knowing, saying, and I got that from I modified it my own way, but it's from the yogi point of view. They just say, this dream. They don't do reality checks. It's all a dream. It's all information, right? Going out of body, lucid dreams. I'm just interpreting some type of information. Here's the same way. I'm taking in data with my eyes. I see you on the screen. My eyes aren't really seeing. They're just taking in some type of data, sending that data through little neural pathways into my brain, and my brain is interpreting and telling me what I'm seeing, right? So really, reality is only interpretation of whatever we're dealing with. It's never the true reality, which is really strange. It's an interpretation through our brain and senses. So they all need each other. They wouldn't work. Your eyes don't, they need your brain needs your eyes. Your ears need your brain needs your ears. But everything, they all work together. So when you go through it like this, everything's a dream. Everything is data, right? You can phrase it however you want. If you don't like the word dream, say it's all data. It's all information that you're taking in. And now when you go to do it in a dream, because it's all about just doing it during the day. So you inevitably will eventually do it at night. and it becomes important to you. You're teaching your subconscious that this is what you want to do. And like I said, your subconscious is so powerful. It's a tool that we don't use as much, but it runs our very existence. So it's better to be consciously aware, co-creating with it, than letting it do its thing on its own, because it's gonna do it anyway, right? Our subconscious works whether we are there with it or not. So better to be going hand in hand down the road together rather than letting it do its thing, because it could do whatever you've trained you've unawareingly trained it to do, which is kind of strange if you think about it. So that's what a reality check is in a base. So I would tell people to practice all day awareness, like you're always dreaming, and really feeling things out and asking yourself, like, oh, I feel the keyboard underneath my fingers right now. Like, am I dreaming? Like anytime, every time you walk through a doorway, set the intent to ask yourself, am I dreaming? But you're not really remember, you're always expecting that you are. I think that's the secret sauce right there. And then you said something about, I think your next part of your question was how sometimes the experience in and out of body is more real than real life, and the colors are more vibrant. There's even colors that I haven't seen before here. My eyes don't have the capacity, like I said before, to take in the data of these colors that actually exist between colors. And going out of body, you see these beautiful, like purple greens, and they're just mixes of other colors. I can't even describe them. They're impossible to actually describe, because I would sound kind of like I'm making it up in a way, because we don't see them here. They're not here. And I think they're the reason, and I don't know, but the reason I would say that it's, other people say this too, that go out of body, that it's more real than real life. And it's not that this isn't real. This is definitely real. But the thing is that you feel that connection. When I was telling my story before about, I get it all, I understand everything. It's because you finally feel the thing that you've been yearning and missing your whole entire life. And that you've been told that it doesn't exist. Oh, it's just that life sucks, then you die, or life's great, then you die. And it's like, this connects you to that. So in that sense, it feels more real than real life, because now you're finally connected to this thing that connects all things, right? I think they call it like Indra's web or Indra's net in some mythology. It's like we're all jewels on a big net. Or I like to think of it as, because since I'm a musician, I like to think of it as like there's this big giant symphony being played, and we're all, one note doesn't make a symphony, but you're one note in a giant symphony, and we're all big, we're creating it together. And without all of it, the symphony wouldn't sound the same without your unique perspective, your unique contribution to consciousness. And some notes are bad, not bad, but some notes are off key, but it still makes it unique. And that's the feeling of why it's more real. It's not necessarily that it's more real than real life. There's a reason for it. It's because of now you're finally engaged with that part of yourself that understands that it is more than its physical body, than it ever was told that it was.
I also really love what you said about us all being like different notes in a symphony. And it takes all kinds of instruments, and some are playing softer and some are playing louder.
Exactly.
But it takes everybody to make this symphony. I think that's gorgeous. And you are a musician, you've mentioned. Can you talk a little bit more about music? Music has changed for me with my meditative experiences. My relationship with music has changed. So I'm very curious to hear from other people who are interested in music, or where music seems to be a big part of your life. You said that sometimes you write a song, but it feels like it just flowed through you. It doesn't feel like you were really writing it. Can you talk about some of those experiences, and whether music has whether your relationship with music has changed?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. Like most people, music connects everybody. Somehow we all the vibrations. We were inside of our mother's womb, every one of us, feeling that heartbeat. We all have tempo, vibration, rhythm. Uh, we heard the ears are actually one of the first things that form when you're being built inside your mother. Uh,
Mm.
and so and then water, since we're in amniotic fluid, actually makes sound travel farther, right? And you can hear for a farther distance in water. So everything's amplified in a way. So just on that basis, like I think that's why one of the reasons music is so prominent to everybody, and it does something. We all have our own unique versions of what we like. And a lot of basically all religions and ancient texts say something about, you know, the creator speaking or singing the world into existence, right? Which
Mhm.
is, again, vibration, something, I don't know, but there's something to do with music. It's really connective. Like you can feel through music, right? And we've all had that. We're having a great day and a song comes on we love and makes it even better, or we're having a moment of solace or something, and we put on a song that makes it that we want to listen to make ourselves feel better, and it connects with us. So we've all had that. And my parents were big music people, like a lot of people, so they were playing music all the time in the house, and they liked classic rock stuff, but my dad was into the Grateful Dead a lot. So they're a jam band. And so I guess when I started playing music, and being a right-brained person, I didn't really care so much to learn everything and be like, okay, you're supposed to play this here, here, and here, and this note fits here. I was like, let me see what my ear tells me what goes where, like an improvisational jazz style jam. And so that's where my music started. So I kept it there. And over time, I've learned, all the technical stuff, but it was more like, while I'm doing this and it sounds right, why does it sound right? So then I'd learn why it sounded right. I didn't learn why it sounded right and then try to do it. It was the opposite for me.
Mhm.
So always listening to my ear. And when you're playing in a band, even by yourself, but really, definitely by yourself too. But when you're playing with a band, especially people, I've played with the same people for a really long time now. Three of them for like at least the last 20 years, 25 years, right? And when it's like having a nonverbal conversation that you're all
Yeah.
talking at the same time somehow, but you're all listening also, and you're talking back and forth like, oh, I say this, and then they say something back, and then
Mhm.
the other guy says another thing back, and then you're like, oh, and you respond, and there's this creation. It's all art is like is creation and like self-expression, right? And music has this quality where it's instantaneous, especially in a jam. Instantaneous creative self-expression happening in real time. Like it's all happening as you play the note. It's happening now, they're all playing and you're going. It's like this amazing thing that happens. So already there, I can, talking about it, I can see the connection to consciousness, right? But I never looked at it that way. And over time, it's changed. And I love any improv music. I love all music, really. And I have my favorites, but I love improv music because it takes real improv music takes you on this journey, right? Where again, they're all playing these notes and they're all unique and awesome, and you don't know where you're going, right? You're not playing a song that you've played 700 times the same way perfectly.
Mhm.
And sometimes there's screw ups because you're making things up, and those screw ups become beautiful, right? It could be the change of everyone hears your thing and you think it's a wrong note, and then they respond to that wrong note. And then all of a sudden you're somewhere else you didn't expect to
Yeah.
be, right? Just like life, right? You're all playing this symphony, and sometimes
Mhm.
there's a misplayed note, but then somehow reality meanders with you through that and becomes another experience. So I've had some cool experiences with music going out of body, being in places where beautiful music is being played, and like I'll take it back with me, trying to take it back with me. And then I'll more intellectually take it back on the being level from your creative part. And then I try to, intellectually bring it back into reality here. And I've done that, and it's awesome because it's like things are coming through. And then
Mhm.
sometimes, and it's happened more lately, I've been writing a lot of new music for myself, just because I want to write and I want to create. even if it never gets played with the band, I just want to write it and create it. And a lot recently is just when I get into the zone, and any musician will tell you this too, that it's just all of a sudden like you got this idea, you're inspired, right? Inspiration, move me brightly. You're inspired and you start doing this thing. And all of a sudden, I'm writing a song that 15 years ago would have taken me 4 days to really write. And I write it in 15
Mm.
minutes, lyrics and everything. And it's like, it just comes out. And I'm like, whoa, this is like, it happened to me like 4 months ago when I was like, this is the best song I've ever written ever for me. Like me personally, I was like, this is the best song ever. I brought it to the band and they're like, this is amazing. Whoa, this is a really cool song. And they're all like, we played it for the first time we ever played it, just trying to work out the kinks with the band. And the drummer got out of the drum booth behind his drums and just put up his hand. I've known, he's been my friend for my whole life, basically. Just put up my hands like, this is my favorite song you've ever written. And I was like, inside, I was like, it's so weird because it just came from somewhere. It's almost like I didn't write it. And I've heard musicians say this before, that they're playing an instrument, but really, truly, they're the instrument, right? It's like you're letting this
Yeah.
thing that exists out there come through, and you're just the vessel. You're the thing that's allowing it to be produced into the physical world where it's already exists on some level. And I don't know if all time's happening at the same time or how that works. That's a whole interesting other topic. But but it's like it just happens, and it's coming through you. It's coming. You're the reason it's coming. Like maybe you wrote it. It's definitely possible that you came up with it, and I think you can do that. But I think then you're performing an intellectual writing of music, because some great creators of music, especially back, writing symphonies and orchestras and piano pieces, it's mathematical, right? You're putting things on paper in a form that makes sense, because that's what happens. All the notes line up with chords and keys and time signatures, and that's how it's supposed to be done. And it comes up with beautiful stuff. So you can write intellectually and you can write intuitively. And combining both is probably, like everything, you want to see it from both sides. But when it comes through you, it's like that feeling when you're listening to music and you're really connecting with it. So it's that. And I feel like I'm bringing it forth from somewhere else, because how did I write that quickly, where I don't think I would be able to normally? So yeah, it's changed my writing process a lot. And there's times where we're playing and we get into some deeper jamming. Sometimes, we could play for 25 minutes and not say a word. We're just playing.
Yeah.
And there's times where it's like I'm in a meditative state, in a way where I kind of like when you're driving and you all of a sudden forget that you were driving and an hour passed, and you're like, you kind of come to and you were in your own little headspace, imaginative, creative place. And you're like, whoa, how did I do this? But you drove perfect. You hit every stop sign. You didn't crash into anyone. You saw the ball roll across the street. So it's like you were still taking in that data, but you were living in this other place. And that happens when I'm playing music. All of a sudden, I'm like, I'll come out of it for some reason. I don't know what knocks you out of it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm playing music right now. And I'll look
Mhm.
around and I'm in, our band room playing, and I have to I'll still be able to play, but now I'm like playing. I'm not just letting it flow. I'm like, oh, I got to keep playing here. It's like, whoa, where was I? And then like that's going through my
Yeah.
head as I'm trying to like keep up and respond and listen to what's going on. So yeah, there's some crazy, it's meditative in itself when you really let go. And I think it takes a long time for that to happen, because you have to feel comfortable doing it in
Yeah.
general with anything. Like I said before, it takes lots of practice to do anything. Anything, if you want to be good at, there's what is that 10,000 hour rule that they talk about. Do something for
Yeah.
10,000 hours and you'll become a master at it. And there's probably some truth to that, right? Like once you become comfortable with something, then you're really expressive with it. And
Mhm.
yeah, music is amazing, and it definitely has changed. And I think you too have had some interesting experiences where places where music comes from. And I feel like I've
Yeah.
tapped into that place a few times in my out of bodies, where it's like, oh, and bringing that up, like when you're in these places, maybe that's where, when people write like that, when it just comes through them, that they're pulling it from this place that you can experience an out of body. And again, anyone can go there if you have that intent and you want to go out of body, and you practiced and you had some diligence in your practice, then you can put the intent out to go experience that place and see how it feels for yourself. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I love this stuff.
Yeah, but it is really cool. And I did experience a place, like a sort of like, it seemed to me at the time, a common space where music comes from, like where all music comes from. That's what it felt like in that moment. And it did feel like I could hear every song that had ever been written or ever would be. And I was hearing it in different versions. So, you know, and mixed with other songs too. So like how this song and that song could be put together to make this third song, it was very cool. And it did make me curious because it felt like that was the place. I don't know if you've seen the movie Soul. It's an animated Disney movie.
Oh
It
yes.
talks about music and that place that you go to. It's about a jazz musician, and he's about to get his big break playing on stage, and he's just kind of like worked for this moment his entire life. And he has a near-death experience. And it's a very cool movie. I would definitely recommend watching it. I think we would have some stuff to talk about after you watch this movie.
I'm going to
Um,
now.
yeah, and he describes, I think he describes listening to Miles Davis, and how when you were listening, Miles Davis, as he was playing, was going somewhere else. And if you let yourself, he could take you there with him. Like that's how it's described. And they show a visual representation of being in this flow state where you're just kind of like floating in this golden light. And that's what I think of when you're talking. I'm thinking of that scene, like, just kind of floating in this golden light in that flow state where nobody else matters, like there's nothing else around. It also, being in that flow state in sports, being in the kind of same space, like if you're a basketball player and you're, like, or baseball, whatever it is, and then something might happen and then it throws you off and you're not in that flow anymore, and then you stumble or you drop the ball. So yeah, very cool movie to kind of get that idea of what it's like to be in that flow state. But I digress.
No, that was great. I'm definitely absolutely going to watch that. Sounds like I'd be right into it. And I got like chills when you
It's
were saying,
beautiful.
they take you on a journey and you can go with them. And I think everyone
Yeah.
can feel that when they listen to the songs that really move them. And that's
Right.
what I love going to jam band concerts for, is because I'm going on this journey. I feel like I'm
Mhm.
part of the music, right? I'm not playing with them like I do here, but I'm still going on this journey. If they can take me somewhere, that's so amazing. And yeah, and
Absolutely.
you're right about the flow state part. Uh, if you look at reality like a wave, and I think, the wave function, even physics says it like that. If you look at reality like a wave, we're always letting reality crash on us. That's what it feels like most of the time. We're reacting to the wave that's crashing on
Mhm.
top of us.
Mhm.
And in that flow state, you're rising above and riding that wave
Right.
like a surfer,
Yeah.
right? And you're
Yeah.
with it. It's not, and maybe you're even ahead of it. That's why I like people like Michael Jordan, for basketball. Like, it'd say he's already knows what's going to happen before it happens. 10 steps
Mhm.
away, 10
Yeah.
steps ahead of the rest of the
Right.
game. And, that flow state, when you're in it, I'm sure like we've all been in it in moments. Even reading a book, you can be in flow
Yeah.
state, right?
Mhm.
Being really immersed in it. And all of a sudden 2 hours went by and you're like, I just read for
Right.
2 hours.
Yeah. And it could be anything. It's even people who are, masters at whatever they do, whether it's baking or, changing oil in a car. There are certain things that people, like are really good at in their lives. And I think whatever it is, big or small, you can kind of go into that flow state no matter what it is. Just all you have to do is be willing to kind of let go of the intellect. The biggest struggle with any of these kinds of exercises or meditation, going out of body, the biggest struggle people seem to have is turning off that inner dialogue. And if you can talk about that a little bit, what is that voice and what isn't it, and how can we control it, or what can we do to make that less of a struggle, um, to let us do what we're trying to do without getting in the way.
Yeah, yeah, I'm big on this, and I'm a person who talks to myself all the time. So it doesn't mean you have to, that internal dialogue um, can be a helper or a hamper. And it's mostly a hamper for a lot of people because we like to tell ourselves stories, right? Stories about the
Mhm.
past, stories about the future, and we're the main character. Everyone is their own main character in their own story, but they're not also the
Mhm.
main character. They're also the narrator of their story, telling that main character what to do, what to expect, what to
Mhm.
believe, right? And then eventually we become the protagonist in our own story because now we're the ones hampering and limiting our own experience through the story that we're telling ourselves. So that story is all of our catalog of data that we've taken in, the intellect. It's taken everything it's ever had and labels it, describes it, files it away, puts it into a category. So now it can relate other things to it if it's good or bad. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's when it starts running your life and it's always, for example, when you're talking to someone, trying to give them your time because they're telling you something important. And then all of a sudden you find yourself thinking of something else. Your self importance comes through and you're trying to listen to them, but you're really thinking about anything else that's not being present with them in the moment. That internal dialogue runs our lives. And always, it's again, it goes back to it's trying to help you, but it's not really doing its job very well. So for me, I have an actual voice in my head all the time. And I know some people don't have a voice, but let's talk about what the internal dialogue is, and then we'll talk about what it isn't. So it's not just a voice. It doesn't mean, even though we say it's dialogue, I think for a lot of people it is. But I know some people say they don't have an inner voice, they don't talk to themselves. But I'm sure you see pictures, that bill on the counter that's overdue, um, the remembrance of that guy that cut you off, and it's set your whole day. You keep going back to that moment, right? That's your internal dialogue. Also, it's pictures, it's feelings. How did that make you feel? You keep going back to it, and then now it's dictating. An outside external force is now dictating your inner state, which is crazy, right? Something external dictating your inner self. And I don't want to give things that power, right? So now let's talk about, just because we touched on what it is. So I think everyone does have an internal dialogue. It's just not what they dialogue may be the wrong term, but it's an internal story. Let's call it the internal
Mhm.
story.
Mhm.
So what it isn't is when you're solving a problem, right? When you have to think about things, when you have to decipher something, when you're trying to create, it is not that either. Trying to create something is not you telling yourself a story. When you're giving someone your undivided attention, and you're listening to them taking in any data is not your internal dialogue. So now that we've
Mhm.
got those out of the way, now how many times a day? So I've read this thing recently that said that we have 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day, which is crazy to me that we can put a number on it. But they must do it through neurons firing and all that stuff. And then like
Mhm.
something like 60 to 80% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday and the same thoughts we'll have tomorrow. So
Mhm.
those 60 to 80% is the internal dialogue, I'd say. The story we
Mhm.
tell ourselves and how the world works, why people are the way they are. Um, telling and like it's our self-pity, for lack of a better term, right? Like, oh, why does this happen to me all the time? Or if I was that, I would have done this. And it's our story. It's we feel bad for ourselves and we're trying to defend ourselves, that version of self that was created a long time ago, and it keeps putting up walls. If you're going to put up a wall, please put up a window so you can see out of it, because it's hard to see
Good
behind the walls. But really, we have to realize that those walls never existed in the first place. They were just an illusion of the mind that we've created through our internal dialogue.
Mhm.
So it's becoming aware. And I like to practice, well, like I said, I still talk to myself, but it's more productive instead of, if I find myself in a thought loop, I think that's what a feedback loop, a bad one, because
Mhm.
that's what we all, again, with that 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and then like 60% of them are the same thoughts. Well, that's a thought loop, a feedback loop, and we're doing the same things over and over and over. And right, is that's kind of crazy. Why would we want to? Why do I have to? It's probably the reason people write down notes, right? Like, so I don't have to think
Yeah.
about it again because I know it's stable. I have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. I have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, 8 a.m. I have a doctor's
Right.
appointment on Tuesday at 8 a.m. I better write this down so I don't have to think about it, right? So there's that too. And that's not necessarily your internal dialogue, but it's part of it. It's part of it because you
Mhm.
think, you feel that it's going to screw up your schedule, your data is going to change, all of those things. So I becoming aware of it is the first thing. How is it affecting your life? This chatter that's constant. It's a hard drive that never stops spinning. It's like looking for problems. Right? For me personally, I can talk, and I think other people could relate, I assume, is that like you have this thing you're trying, it's taking up all your thought bandwidth. Like again, I'll go back to, you're doing a project for work that's really important. You're going to get a raise after, all these things. You're trying to impress people. You want the bonus at the end of the year, whatever it may be. It's important to you, so you keep going back to that thought over and over and over. And now you've thought about it a million times. It didn't change the outcome because you did the work, right? That's what matters. You put in the work, the effort. It still takes effort, but you wasted all this bandwidth and all this time thinking about it in the first place. Now the
Yeah.
thing does its thing and goes through. Say it succeeds, even if it fails, but we'll say it succeeds. You're like, yes, everything's all right. How long does it take before another problem unwinds itself from your mind, right? Everything's good for
Right.
like hours, a day, minutes, who knows? Like for me, it's like there's all of a sudden your intellect, that internal dialogue, cooks up a quick story and might make up a problem. And all of a sudden we start getting fixated on it again, taking away from our interaction, our energy here. Because this is the most important place to be. Right now, they say that with out of body. Like if I stopped having out of bodies today, I'd be okay because it's really about being here, right? I've learned a lot through going out of body, but it's about bringing it back here and implementing it. So the internal dialogue kind of can stop that learning process because it's going to tell you, it's it's literally something inside of you that is telling you what to interpret. So that's that thing that's filtering reality
Mhm.
through itself. So you're not really seeing reality, you're seeing your interpretation of it. And that internal dialogue is like one of the biggest reasons. It's experience put into like work. It's now every experience you've had telling you how to act in the next experience, telling you how to feel in this next experience, telling you how to think in the upcoming day and what to expect and all of these things. So when I
Right.
started really diving into it, and I really got it from Carlos Castaneda books, really, because they he focuses on it a lot. So it made me just be like, well, those books are entertaining and great, but there's something here with that. Even if all that stuff is, a story he created or it's not, there's something here. So I started just trying to force stop it. And I don't like using the word force, but it's almost like I am forcing it. It's a bad word. I should probably find a better one, but we'll say force stop your inner dialogue.
Mhm.
Let's say actively, consciously and actively being aware of when it happens, right? So
Right.
you're driving down the road and you're thinking over and over and over again about the person that just cut you off. And now it's
Mhm.
changing your internal state. You're getting upset. Now you're chattering to yourself, oh, that guy, he's probably this, and all these things. You're just making things up to justify your feelings to yourself. So
Right.
when that happens, now you just go, wait, let's stop that. You have to be aware of it. And then now you can consciously force stop it. So I would just drive around. I do it whenever I have free time, which you can do it driving. Just like I said about when you drive and you don't remember anything, but you still drove good. That's kind of the state
Mhm.
I'm trying to achieve in a way. So I'm still taking in all the data. I'm not just like blindly not letting things come through. I need to pay attention to the data coming in. So a part of my awareness, a small sliver of my attention is still doing all that stuff. But I'm stopping the story inside my mind. And you can do it anytime, like right now, whoever is listening, just try to not think for 1 second. Just go, I'm going to think of nothing. I actually like to call it the nothing because it's not
Mm.
nothing. It's focusing on the nothing. For some reason works better for me because it's hard to think of nothing. But when I think of the nothing, that's like the void. And the void doesn't mean nothingness. It just means the potential of everything, right? It's
Mhm.
where all things are created from. So you're just staying there and not letting everything bubble up. And I bet you within 2 seconds, a thought pops into your mind. Oh, I gotta change my tire. It's low. Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay, wait, stop. I'm supposed to be stopping my internal. I already thought about that today. Go back to force stopping your internal dialogue. And then you'll make it 3 seconds and 4 seconds. And after a week, you can go 7 seconds. And then after a month and a half, you can go 20 seconds. And then it translates over into meditation too, because now, I mean, that's what meditation is really for, is basically trapping your intellect by focusing on the breath, focusing on a mantra, a visualization. It's trapping it to do something. So it allows that other part of us to slide in and start taking the wheel for once. And
Yeah.
so after you can stop your internal dialogue for like 2 or 3 minutes, which is, it's not hard. It just takes effort because again, we've never tried before. We've let this thing inside of us just run our life for us because we think it's natural. And that's how we, whatever it is, if it's feelings, words, pictures, anything. So once you can stop that thing, you can have some crazy things happen. Like if you can do it for 2 to 3 minutes in a meditation, in a meditative state, uh, even with your eyes open, which is crazy because then things, we can close our eyes and meditate and you see things. And I think anyone can say that they've seen things behind their eyelids, right? That's when we dream. So we can the intellect can easily chalk that up as like, it doesn't push back on that stuff because your eyes are closed. But when you start having things happen in front of you with your eyes open,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to ignore that you're not imagining it, right? That some other
Yeah.
part of you is now interpreting some other data differently that was already always there. It never was not there. We just weren't on the right station to let it come in clearly, right? So
Mhm.
if you that internal dialogue, I want to think besides fear, and it's right there with it because it creates a lot of fear for us. It's telling us what to be fearful of. Again,
Mhm.
categorizing things. And when you have a new experience, it's automatically relating it to the old experience and putting it in the box with it. So if you can just get it to at least not be unproductive thinking for you, it doesn't, like I said, you don't have to stop it so you don't think all the time. You don't want to be a mindless drone, but you don't want it to run your life for you. So, and then things start happening. Now you're that bandwidth that it was taking up, which is a lot. It takes up a lot of our bandwidth telling us stories. If you can now get that bandwidth down from 60 to 80% of those thoughts are the same a day to 10 or 20, well, that's leaving 40 to 60% of other information to be able to come through. And these are those other reality frames that are actually available to us at any time we want. And we can get in tune to make a decision, right? You can more clearly interpret what's going on without fear, without the lens of fear and your internal dialogue telling you how to interpret. Now you can interpret things more clearly, which means that you have more options and a bigger picture because now you're not stuck in, fear makes you focus right in. And when you focused in on a microscope, you don't see what's outside the microscope. But if you zoom out, there was things there all the time. You zoom out more is more. So as you get really far back and have a huge, big picture, which both those things, fear and internal dialogue, limit your picture. You get rid of
Mhm.
those, all of a sudden you have more options, more clear options. More options means more probability of a higher quality outcome, right? A lower entropy choice is easier to make because, I mean, I'm bad at dumb choices like, you know, which sandwich do I want to eat at the store that I'm at? Which ice cream do I want to, like those? But now, like, that's fine. I just, because I want it all. That's really why. But big choices that matter get easier to make because now you're not limited by the fear or internal dialogue forcing you, justifying to you to make the choice that you think you believed at the time you had to make. But really there was a bunch of other choices that you just couldn't see because of the focus in our view. And that allows, when you can make better choices for yourself, that just means a better life happens in front of you. And
Yeah.
that internal dialogue is, I think it might be the biggest driver, because it creates fear too. Because once you get fearful, now you're talking about it to yourself. And it's one of those things that before you become aware of it, it's nothing. It's just this thing that happens. And now I'm like, again, I've set an intent to be hyper aware of it and always noticing. And now I can train also, that's my negative thoughts in general, my fearful thoughts. Now I can notice them more, and then I can change them by shifting my perspective on them. And then every time I do that, all I'm doing is training myself to do that all the time. And eventually, now I'm not having those thoughts. I'm manifesting my own life, right? Because we're doing it anyway. Like, you're creating your reality, whether you know it or not. Your view of reality is based on your thoughts. You see what you look for. If you always think everything goes wrong for you, that's what you're going to see in life, because you're always looking at it through that lens. Even when things go right, you'll just be like, oh, that's lucky this time. Even if they go right most of the time, you're still looking through the lens of, you see what you look for. So you're going to manifest and create no matter what. So why not do it consciously, with your own hand on the wheel, with your own thumb on the scale, to be able to create what you want? And manifesting isn't just manifesting physical objects. Like, I'm going to manifest $1 million in my hand. Yep, it's possible. Physics says anything's possible, but it's maybe
Yeah.
improbable to happen. But your viewpoint, you manifest every second of your life, right? How you see things is you manifesting the world around you, right? And reality has no other option than to bend to what you intend. It's going to do it.
Mhm.
So if you let it take control, reality's it's consciousness. It's malleable. It's doing what you, again, it's happening for you, through you, not to you. So if you put your hand on the wheel and start changing the way you view, all of a sudden reality opens up and changes for you. And I think that's the best part of manifestation. It's not necessarily manifesting actual physical objects, although I think it's possible. I've had some interesting experiences, but I think overall that it's about how you look through the lens and the story you're telling yourself, because that story is going to be what you're reading. So why don't you stop reading the story and start writing it instead?
And you mentioned manifestation a couple of times. I know that you also teach a class. You teach a couple classes, and one of them is a manifestation and conscious creation workshop. And you also mentioned that you had a couple of interesting experiences. I don't think I can let you off the hook. You have to tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure people are going to be curious. Because that is something that I guess after people have put in the work with meditating and say they've kind of got the hang of it a little bit, like how to be open to consciousness as being all around us and not something that is out of our grasp, or something that we can only access through special teachers or something like that. It is available to all of us to explore on our own. Can you talk a little bit about how people can get started with conscious creation, if that's something that they're curious about once they get into this?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're all doing it all the time, every second of our lives anyway. At least I believe that.
Mhm.
So the way we see things is what we get. So if we're not consciously doing it with it, co-creating, we're letting that creation happen for us by our subconscious mind. That's why I say they got to unite those things. That's so powerful, right? It's the subconscious may be the being level. I don't know, but it's some part of us that reacts to how your thoughts are. My whole life, again, being right-brained, there's been a couple experiences to me that things did change in front of me within, like, basically turning around and coming back. One specific one. So before I get into that, like, my whole life before I started realizing what I was doing, it was more like, oh, I'd have this feeling, like, so you see something you want, like anything, like a new car, a new guitar. For me, yeah, music stuff was a big thing. So say I wanted this new guitar. It was out of my price range and didn't want to ask my parents for it and blah, blah, blah. But I really had this amazing feeling like, oh, I love this thing. It'd be so cool to have it. Oh, you really dive into that feeling. And it's not that I want it. And I think there's a lot of stuff on this on the internet too, but I didn't know about it back then. And I'd think about it, be like, yeah, think about it for a day. And it was the excitement of like, oh, it'd be cool to own it. Not, I'll never have this. Not the feeling of lack or, or miss something missing. It was just like, wow, wouldn't that be so cool? Kind of like a kid. Oh, this
Yeah.
is amazing. Let me have more. So then I would kind of let it go. And I like to describe it like a kite. Like, you could tie a kite to you and you'd never know it was there, right? But you're still holding on to it. It's just kind of floating
Mm.
behind you. So that's kind of like, I kind of feel is one of the secrets for manifestation is not grabbing it too tightly, being like, I need this. As soon as you say I need this, that means you don't have it. And that's implying lack, right? So in my non-knowing days of what was going on, when I didn't think about it, all of a sudden I'd let that go. And after a day or two, I'd kind of stop thinking about that thing. And maybe it would pop up a week later, like, yeah, that guitar. Oh, well, back to life. It's okay. I don't have it. It's okay. I'm fine without it. Right. It'd be cool to have
Mm.
it, but I'm fine without it. Life's awesome. And then, like, within a month, like, somehow, some way, like, right at, like, it dropped into my lap out of the sky, not literally, but figuratively, like, my guitar teacher would be like, hey, one of my students is selling this guitar. And it's like the guitar I wanted. I'm like, he's like, yeah, he just
Mhm.
wants this much money for it. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So those type of things happened to me my whole life. Everything I ever wanted kind of fell into my lap in a strange way, not instantaneously, but over time. I even think I manifested the house I bought and live in now, looking back on it. It's literally everything I wanted. Secluded,
Mhm.
large, has open design, like it's in the woods, like a long driveway, everything. And like it just fell into my lap. It was the first house I went and looked at and bought it then instantly, right? Like, so it just kept happening. And those times in my life when I was saying before, when I kind of got into my left brain thinking, that's when I noticed actually was through manifestation, even though I didn't really know it at the time, it was that, is that like, hey, things aren't working out. You got to change your thought process. So I'd change it back and it would take a week or two or a month or whatever. And then all of a sudden things started falling in my lap again. And it's like confirmation, that's enough info for me to confirm that there's something to this, right? So when you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm never going to get that raise, I'm never going to get a partner, I'm going to, well, you're manifesting that. It's like your power of creation. That's intent. That's the why. Intent is the why, not the what, right? Not the thing. It's the why behind everything. It's not the words you say. You could make up a word, blah, 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 blah. And it's really what you mean behind it. That is intent. So keeping that intent good and open and knowing that it's possible, you have to change that because if you're always looking at life through whatever lens, doesn't matter what it is, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, doesn't matter. That's what you're going to get. And it's pretty based for me, like it's foundational that my thoughts are creating my reality. My viewpoint is everything on how I perceive and being okay with the worst possible outcome, which is also not realizing that I don't need anything to be Brannen, right? I'm already Brannen. So I don't need anything. And in that thought of not needing anything, you have everything, right? Doesn't that make sense? You don't need anything. So that means you have everything. So that implies I can get anything. And I don't need it, but it'd be cool to experience it. So my whole life went like that. And then again, starting to facilitate out of body and trying to expand Consciousness Hub itself and started delving into manifestation and being like, okay, I get this. And again, our Tuesday night group that we talk, one of those people in that is really, deep into manifestation and has a great viewpoints on it. It really opened my eyes to start paying attention to these things years ago. So now I understood it all. I just needed, just like guitar, I didn't know what I was doing. I was playing by ear, and then I put the pieces of the technical parts after. Same thing with manifestation. I've been doing it my whole life. Now I put in the technical
Mhm.
parts so I can convey it through metaphors and words to other people to see if it helps them. And that's what the course is about. The workshops is just really helping people. Even the OBE workshop, we just want people to live better lives. It's not really about going out of body. It is, like, I know everyone wants that headshot that's amazing, and you do want to experience it. It's amazing, but really it's about living a better life. And that's what meditation can do. Probably the
Mhm.
biggest thing is meditation, right? Because it covers all these bases, gets rid of fears, internal dialogue, makes you more aware, gives you more bandwidth, all of these things. So that's why I think
Yeah.
manifestation, you can manifest having an out of body experience. You can manifest anything. And there's been a
Mhm.
couple times, and we've all heard stories online, and I've heard stories from my friends, even ones who aren't spiritual, that they're like, whoa, this crazy thing happened. My wife will tell weird stories all the time where she was like, oh, I was looking for this thing. And then her boss calls her and like gives her this thing. And like, all just your thoughts are really so powerful when they're conscious. Well, even when they're unconscious, but when they're conscious thoughts, now you're co-creating with reality. You're riding that wave again, not letting it crash on you. So a couple times, just I'll give a couple quick two examples of something actually physically. And I think anyone can relate to, you know, manifestation in the sense we were just talking about it, like how things kind of happen when they're going to happen in a weird way. It's like you have no doubt, right?
Yeah.
There's no pushback from placebo. Placebo is a medical thing that they actually have to test against because it has to beat the placebo effect for a drug to be medically said that it was okay, because placebo is
Right.
so prominent. And how does that work? Well, think about it. If your ego, your intellect is always telling you no, 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 but you trust doctors and they say, hey, here's this amazing new drug that's going to fix your anxiety or whatever it may, it's going to cure your liver, whatever it may be, whatever, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
There's no pushback from your intellect because it trusts the doctor is giving you something that works. And all of a sudden, based on that belief alone, it works. And you just took a sugar pill. It wasn't even the actual drug. And somehow it
Mhm.
works. That's wild to me, right? That's a proof that manifestation, that your thoughts, your beliefs help create your reality. So, going back a couple times in my life, I remember when I was a kid, for one of them, just because that's one's more easier to grasp on, but these instantaneous physical things, I guess the placebo effect is very physical, really, but instantaneous manifestation, a couple times in my life, I can give you two good examples. One was when I was a kid and I had this little race car. It was like a stock car or something, metal, and I was driving it around. And like I said before, I keep things nice because I care about them, their consciousness. I didn't know that back then, but and I was rolling it around and catching it before it would hit the wall in my garage. And one of the times I did it too fast and it smashed its front bumper into the cement foundation of my parents' garage. And there's a big chip of paint out of it, like massive. Like, and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I like felt for it, back then being like, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. It's one of those moments that stays with me. And I was like, I'm looking at it like, oh man, I wish that didn't happen. I'm like, it's whatever. I'll just, maybe I can repaint it. Right. I was like probably 10 or 11. Maybe I can repaint it. I'll just do that. So I went inside and went and got, some acrylic paints that my mom had from, because she painted like crafts all the time. Went inside, got some blue paint. It was blue and white. Went inside, and I came back out, and I swear, I can't make this up, that it wasn't completely gone, but that chip was just a scratch now, and I
Mhm.
couldn't see the metal underneath that I could see before. It was just a
Wow.
scratch, and I was like, I remember being like, I was a
Yeah.
kid. I had no idea. I'm like, I don't know how this happened. I was like, I don't even need to paint this now. I don't even need to paint it. It's just a scratch. Like I rubbed off a little piece. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So how did that happen? I have no idea. Right. And that was the first one that always stuck with me. And then even more recently, last year, year and a half ago. I was in a store and I was looking for something. And I've heard other stories just like this one. So, and I was looking for something. It was like a deck of cards or something like that. And I kept going. I had other things to get in the store. I went to the place where the cards are first and looking through, and I'm like, I don't see anything. I'm like, ah. I just walked away and started doing the rest of my shopping, getting all supplies for the house. And I kept thinking, that thing's there. So as my on my walk by as I'm shopping, I go check again. You know, determined. I'm like, it's there. I know it's there. Right. I go up, I look behind everything. I'm like, search for like 3 minutes. It's not here, but I know it's here. I'm like, ah. I might have done that one more time walking around the store. So then as I finish my shopping, I'm pushing my cart back up to the checkout and I get in line to go check out. And I'm like, I got to go check one more time. So I push the cart out of line. I was in the self checkout line. I push back, just go around the corner and I go and look. And I literally right in front, barely behind anything, there's something like offset in front of it, but barely. And I already moved that thing and it's there.
Yeah.
The exact thing I'm looking for is just there. And I'm like, I did not miss this 3 times in a row. There's no way. I was
Right.
actively looking for it. And I think that
Right.
probably is another thing that's happened to a lot of people. You probably have times where you've been looking for something and then like you walk away and come back and it's sitting right where you left it. Now, did it get
Yeah.
rendered out of reality or like the system, the larger consciousness system didn't render it back in time and it was always there? Because I knew that it was there. So those are some
Right.
things of like
Yeah, because you kept
instant
going back.
manifestation.
That's the funny thing. Like you didn't give up after the first or second time. You kept going back. I would have, usually people would be like, oh, they don't have it. Let's keep going.
Exactly. And I just had a feeling, and that has happened, oh, they don't have it and it's gone. And I don't have, but I had this feeling I had to keep checking. So I just, again,
Mm.
following your intuition will lead you to places you never know you needed to be. Right. And that's why that intuitive side is so wonderful to have as a companion in your life, because you don't know where you're going to end up, but
Yeah.
it's pointing you in the direction that you need to go. And the
Yeah.
intellect loves to tell us where we need to go. And that being level intuition, just it shows us where we are already, right? It's riding that wave. So yeah, so manifestation is a big part of everything. We're doing it all the time. And I think if people look at that, hey, wait, yeah, my thoughts, yeah, I am looking at reality this way. And then that's how I always see it. Just that in itself is huge. So then you can change your view of reality, change your perspective, change your reality. That's all.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
This is so cool. Getting to talk to you like this one-on-one is amazing because I just get to drink it all in. There's so much. There's so much I want to ask you. But I know that we're running out of time.
It's been
Um,
wonderful.
well,
I love
before,
this
yeah, it
conversation.
has. It has. There's plenty more that I would love to talk about with you at some point. Maybe we'll have to do a second part of this, or we'll just chat at some point by ourselves. But
Both.
before we go, I want to, yeah, both things. I know, why deprive everybody else of hearing all of your cool stories, right?
Thank you.
But before we go, I want to just ask you to tell us a little bit about the retreat that you have planned for September this year. I'm pretty excited about it because I'm trying to come for at least a day or two. I know I can't come for the entire time, but I'm trying to come for at least a couple of days. And I'm so looking forward to that. And I've never been to a retreat before, so this will be my first experience. So if you can tell us a little bit about the retreat, what's it going to be like? What can people, I don't want to say expect because we don't want to have expectations, but what can people be open to experiencing there?
Yes. All right. I'm glad you're coming for a few days. That's awesome. So, we're having a out of body sort of intensive retreat in in person. It's going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, right outside of the National Smoky Mountain National Park. It's in this
Mhm.
gigantic cabin. I've been there before for another retreat for MBT for my big toe stuff, and it was great. So we're using that same place because we know it's amazing. It sleeps like 80 something people. It's a massive,
Wow.
It's called King of the Mountain Cabin, I think. And it's from
Sounds like
September. Yeah, it's pretty cool there. It's got a pool, it's got trails, it's in the woods, beautiful interior, massive,
Mhm.
open. And it's September 22nd to the 27th of this year. We still have some spots available, I think. No, we definitely do. I think we're a little over half full at this point, and maybe even a
Yeah.
little more. And it's going to be mostly about out of body, but also it touches on energy and intent, your relationships, mostly the relationship with yourself, which folds into all other things. What else do we got? There's out of body itself and a bunch of techniques and practices that we talk about in our workshops. And I've been to a bunch of retreats. The Monroe Institute I've been to a bunch of times, and I went to this MBT retreat at this place in like 2018 or something. So there's this camaraderie. This is Consciousness Hub's first in-person retreat, and there hasn't been as many in-person retreats since COVID, when everyone was doing everything online. So now we've kind of adopted the online process, which is great because you get to connect with a ton of people all the time. But there's something
Mhm.
magical about being in a place with everybody's energy, that collective energy of it's like a concert, and everyone's pumped. It's just a great experience. You can feel the energy, getting to connect with
Mhm.
great people. We have a bunch of um, a lot of intuitive things to games and things to work on. A lot of meditations. We'll be having custom, original meditations with binaural beats and guided ones and non-guided ones for everybody. You get to have them with the course. And also, we'll be trying to make everyone have at least one out of body experience. I can't guarantee anything, but we're really going to try to get you to have this experience. And I remember going to the first one I ever went to. I was so excited. And I was already having OBEs every single day of my life. And I went to William Buellman's at the Monroe Institute. And I was just ecstatic. And everyone's like, why are you here? You already are having all these out of bodies. I'm like, I don't know, but this is so fun. So it's like I can't wait because I just want to be physically there with everybody. And we do these workshops online, and a lot of the people that we see all the time in all of our workshops have already signed up. So it's going to be awesome to
Mhm.
interact with them in person instead of just on a computer screen. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because it's the first one that I have gone to since 2018. It's the first one for Consciousness
Awesome.
Hub. And I think it's the
Mhm.
first one for a lot of people since, we've been doing things online a lot. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited you're going. And I think we still have spots left, like I said. So if anyone wants to um, engage with some amazing people and hopefully have an amazing experience, well, you have an amazing experience anyway. But we're really going to
Yeah.
delve into some of the things we talked about today and a lot more, and it'll be really fun.
Oh, it sounds so cool. And I agree with you. Being around other people who are all um, they all have the same goals, they all have the same curiosity, and I think being in that environment, it kind of opens things up. It kind of like lets you loosen up a little bit because you don't have the I don't know, fear of judgment or
Exactly.
censorship that you might find outside of that
Exactly.
environment. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, you can really, and then like we talk about mob mentality, how people in a mob act outside of character because of the energy the mob is producing, right?
Mhm.
Energy goes to coherence, it goes to the strongest energy. It all kind of um, coheres to the same energy that's the stronger one. So the same
Yeah.
way goes for mob mentality the opposite way. It doesn't have to be bad. It's like all of those people together wanting the same thing, having the same ideas and from all walks of life. But I think it does add to the thing. So it's that energy in itself is important, and I'm
Yeah.
super looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I am looking forward to all of your upcoming workshops and the retreat. And I think everything that we've talked about today is going to be so interesting and valuable to people who are curious about exploring consciousness. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It was my pleasure to be here. Just love to share everything. I'm as much a student myself. Sometimes in my ramblings, I just teach myself things. And when I'm trying to help other people, I'm not really teaching them. I'm just learning myself, right? I'm learning
Right.
through them. So I'm just here for that, trying to make people's lives a little bit more easier to roll through together. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to next time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. See you soon.